Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 17 of the Pound for Pound show. I am Philip, and joining me as always are Ben and Russ. How you gentlemen doing today?
Very good.
Great.
Good stuff. Good to hear. So, got some fights to recap from this last weekend, got some interesting news to talk about, and then we got some more big fights coming up this weekend. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Let's get into the main event from last week. We had Curtis Blaydes against Derek Lewis. We all picked Curtis Blaydes, and we were all wrong. It did not go that way at all. So I'll throw it to you guys first to break it down before I give you guys my thoughts. Russ, we'll start with you this week. Let us know what you thought of the fight.
All right. To start out, do you guys want to start with a moment of silence for Curtis Blaydes?
I literally
That's just rude, man.
I was going to say that or make a joke about him still being unconscious or something like that. But
oh my God, what a KO. Derek Lewis is like Thanos at this point. He's inevitable. Like he just, you keep thinking like he can't keep doing this, but now he's tied for most TKO / like KOs in UFC history. And he's the only one still like, active and in their prime. So he's going to hold the record. It's inevitable. He's unbelievable. We thought Curtis Blaydes like had the wrestling to handle him because we seen Cormier do it to him. It was a very tough matchup. Thought Curtis Blaydes could work a similar game plan, and he went out there and decided to strike with him the whole first round, and he was doing very well. Like he was chopping his leg, and it looked like the fight was his, to start. But Derek never really got rocked, but he was getting beat up. And then the second round, he shoots for a takedown, and he catches the absolute uppercut from hell and goes to sleep. And Derek Lewis in the post fight, to his credit, said like, he was just waiting on that shot. And it looked like it too, because he timed that uppercut perfectly and just fed it to him, and then gave him the couple extra devastating shots to the corpse of Curtis Blaydes and ended it. Very, very impressive by Derek Lewis. What can you say at this point? Like, I mean, that's why I don't bet on his fights, on or against him, because that dude's just so unpredictable. But he's very good. I don't know what else you could say about him at this point. He's impressive. What do you think?
He's not an amazing mixed martial artist. You can say that. He is an amazing knockout artist. He's the king of knockouts. Now he's got what, 12 or 13 or something like that? Tied with Vitor Belfort for the most ever. Yeah, we all picked against him, but Blaydes went down like a sack of potatoes. Wrestlers, that's always the scary thing. You always think like, oh man, he's going to get timed going in, and like Masvidal on aspirin or something like that. And then it happens, and we're like, oh my God, it happened again. And man, I was very disappointed. I was rooting for Blaydes. But
you don't say.
Yeah, that was really disrespectful though. The crotch chops at the end of the fight. I mean, like that, after knocking him out cold, landing a few extra shots and then doing the crotch chops. I just found that very classless and disrespectful. That's just me. And then also on top of that, my buddy, I won't name him, but he just silently enraged me with a couple texts he sent. He's not a full blown casual because he's learning every day, but he's a casual. And here's the text I got. I'll just read it right here. He said, all it says is, Curtis Blaydes overrated tonight? ? As if he loses, he's overrated. If he loses to the number 4 heavyweight in the world, he's overrated. That's like that's a very casual thing to say, first off. And then he says, so you're telling me that Ngannou beats Curtis twice and loses to Lewis once, and loses to Lewis once. Lewis is the heavy underdog. And I just put my phone down. I couldn't even, I was like raging, because if you look at like the casuals, they love Lewis just because his personality, and he's a knockout artist and all that. They don't really know Blaydes because he's not that exciting of a fighter. But yeah, it was a great performance by Lewis. Great win. Whatever. What else can you say, Phil?
You got to love that MMA math, how that works. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Derek Lewis was super impressive. It's always interesting because it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, and as you watch the fight, it literally seemed like Derek Lewis had one thing in mind even before he said it. And he's like, he was getting tagged, standing up, and everything was working. He's like, but at some point, he's going to shoot on me and I'm taking him out. And that's exactly what happened. And it's like, it's hard for, as a fan, to understand, like, it seems obvious, like, just don't put your head right there because you know it's going to happen. But somehow, when you're a born and bred wrestler and it's, once you get him on the ground, it's game over. Like, I guess it's just too tempting. And you're like, there's no way he'll catch me coming in. It's a split second. All I got to do is duck in there. But yeah, it seemed like, why would you duck towards the right uppercut of Derek Lewis? It just seemed like
it was a lazy shot too. Like,
yeah, it was a bad shot. And like, you would think even, you would shoot to the other side and make him try to hit you with a left. It reminded me, as I was kind of thinking about it after watching the Bisping Hendo, the first fight, it's like Bisping just kept circling towards Hendo's right hand. And it was like Hendo's was walking forward, waiting until he can knock your head off. Mm-hmm. And you just keep tempting fate and you keep going that way. And it's like, so it kind of, again, at the end of the day, I'm sure when they go back and look at the film, it's going to be very regrettable for Curtis Blaydes. But again, awesome performance. I'm in the exact same boat as Russ. I've counted Derek Lewis out so many times, and how can you keep counting the guy out at this point? He's always got that X factor and can win against anybody. But I'm gonna throw it out to you guys because it's we started discussing this before the show. What do you guys think is the appropriate move next for Derek Lewis? I know he called out Overeem, but he's the number 4 ranked guy and he just knocked out the number 2 ranked guy. But it seems like the title is going to be held up for a while with what they've got planned. So Ben, I'll let you kind of talk about what you think should be next for Derek Lewis and then turn it over to Russ for the same.
Yeah. The winner of this fight was getting screwed regardless. That's how it was set up by design. Because Jones is getting the next shot, or Ngannou's getting the next shot officially. It's already booked. And then Jones is getting the shot after that. So what you do with Lewis, I guess you could do, he wants to fight Overeem, but that's kind of just name hunting. You know what I mean? Like Overeem just came off a bad loss and he's well past his prime. What a tough guy calling out Overeem. I say you do Volkov Lewis or Lewis just waits, or you could do the winner of Rozenstruik and Gane versus Lewis. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Russ, what do you think?
Yeah, you stole my thunder with that one. That's exactly where I was going. I think the winner of this fight, Rozenstruik versus Gane, is the fight to make. They're both they're like on the same timeline, because it's a week apart, and those dudes are both very good, and I think that'd be a good fight. I don't think Overeem is the fight to make. We know Overeem is very chinny, and Derek Lewis just destroys everybody. So like, why do that to him? The odds of Overeem getting the win in that fight are pretty slim, and you don't want to see a legend just continue to go out, plant it on their face. Just that'd be a lame fight to make.
Agree.
I don't know that they're as slim. I agree, it's not the right fight to make, but I think that's a better matchup than maybe. And Derek Lewis seems like a guy who's motivated by like personal vendettas. Like I was unaware there was so much beef between him and Blaydes, but he said that they had Blaydes had been talking bad about him for years, and that was one of, if not the most important win of his entire career, and that's why he smashed him in the face repeatedly after he knocked him out. And I wasn't even aware of that. So he seems like he really wants that Overeem fight. He's been calling for it for a long time. Again, not maybe the best fight, but it's probably a better matchup than maybe you guys think. So, but I agree. I think the Rozenstruik Gane winner should be the next move in theory. But like I said, a wild card is because Volkov was so impressive in his last fight, and he really beat Derek Lewis for 14 minutes and 45 seconds in their first fight. And that's Lewis caught him with literally with a buzzer beater. Yeah. So, seeing them matched up again, I think either one of those would be the appropriate matchup for him. Cause I think, he's 36. I don't think waiting is going to be the appropriate move for him. I think get him back in there, maybe this summertime, with one of those opponents, I think will be good. So
makes sense.
Cool. And speaking of heavyweights, there were 2 other heavyweight fights on the card. Lots of heavyweight action these days, so we'll touch on the first, the Chris Daukaus versus Alexei Olenek fight. Daukaus made pretty short work of my guy Olenek. I was disappointed, but looked good. Ben, how'd you feel about that one?
Dawkins looked good. What is that? 3 straight finishes, I think. He's a good prospect at heavyweight. I mean, Olynyk's beating Olynyk at this point. No disrespect to Olynyk, but he's what, 42, 43, and he's fought like
43.
43. He's fought like 80 times or something like that. I mean, he's past his prime. You can't really gauge someone's talent by beating a guy who's 43 with like 80 fights. But Dawkins is a prospect. Russ, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I was impressed by his performance, but I thought that's what he'd do to Olynyk. He kind of reminds me of Mitrione a little bit, like the way he fights. I know, like, I mean, he's not a great fighter like Mitrione, but he's good. And he just reminds me of him in his promos and the way he fights. He's just a little bit like wacky too. Like I like him. I
can see that.
Yeah. I like the up and coming heavyweights we got.
Comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting how the Olynyk's game plan, he seems like he's just like, at this point in his career, he's like, I'm going to get that choke. Like he literally like just held on and went for that choke. And when it didn't happen, like he literally tried to like from standing, grab him around his neck and drag him to the ground. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen that before.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, but that's his ace in the hole. He's like, man, I'm going to go for this choke. And that's what I got for you at this stage of my career.
Yeah. There's no plan B for Olynyk at this point.
No.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to snatch him by their neck and that's all I got. So, but yeah, I think the Mitrione, I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good comparison. I also appreciate you referring to Mitrione as a great fighter. That I feel good about that. So that's on.
I said he's not great, but he's good. He's been consistent, most of his career.
Yeah,
beating some good dudes, lost to some dudes he shouldn't.
Agreed. Such is the life of a heavyweight. So
yeah.
So, but yeah, speaking of good prospects, Aspinall looked really good as well, finishing the fight. Maybe not in the way that people expected. Russ, how'd you like that one?
I liked it a lot. I'm a big fan of Aspinall. I think he's a very solid prospect, and his hands look so fast for a heavyweight. He was tearing him up in the first round. I thought like the KO finish was coming for sure, and then he just decided to hop on his back right at the start of the second, put a rear naked on. It looked like oddly easy for him. I didn't know he had that kind of jiu-jitsu. I think he was like 16-1 or something to finish by submission. So odds makers did not see that finish coming either, but
wow.
We knew, I mean, I don't want to say all of us, but we pretty much knew Aspinall was getting the win.
Yeah. Yeah. Aspinall looked great.
Just tearing dudes up.
He did that like just on a whim. Like he's like, all right, I'm going to finish it now. That's what it seemed like. You know what I mean?
It is. It seems like I didn't get the KO in the first, so I'll just submit you. And it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah. He looked really light on his feet. He's a quick heavyweight, great prospect. He looks like he can compete with the top 10. So he's now in the top 10. So he'll get a big name opponent, a good name opponent next.
Yeah, let's hope so. He definitely is another good up and comer. It's good to see a lot of good and upcoming heavyweight. So it should be an interesting couple of years, a lot of excitement in that heavyweight division. And yeah, it was funny. Even he said, he was like, I was surprised as anybody. Like I didn't expect the fight to end that way. So, but yeah, it's good for him. So we'll see what's next for him. So overall, pretty fun card. So hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about a quick news story, which will lead to possibly some heated debate and some opinions. And then we'll get on to reviewing the upcoming card from this week. So the big news this week is Leon Edwards finally has a fight. He's booked against Bilal Muhammad. So huge props to Muhammad for stepping up and taking this fight. I'm going to turn it over to you guys first before I go on my soapbox and talk about my thoughts on this fight. So Ben, let us know what you think about this.
I think Edwards got screwed. I think he deserves a bigger name, but no one would take the fight like Colby, George, because Edwards isn't that marketable of a fighter. So they gave him someone who's on a 4-fight win streak, I believe 4 fights, and who's looked real impressive lately. And Muhammad, props to Muhammad, though. He's got some balls for stepping in against Edwards. Edwards is a bad dude. But like, you can't just sit out that long, whether it's in your control or not, and then expect to, fight a top guy. You're going to go down. You're going to go down the rankings just a little bit and fight someone a little bit less of a name. So that's what Edwards got for sitting out so long. Unfortunate, but we'll see how it goes. It's a tough matchup for him. Russ?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good matchup. I think he kind of got left the odd man out, but eventually you have to get a payday. Like you can't that's how he makes his money. So you got to get in there and get a fight eventually. So that's what you get,
Yeah.
Agreed. So yeah, I'm less frustrated by it than I was at first. Like I think my initial reaction when I heard it was like Ben. I felt like Leon was really getting the short end of the stick. Because that is a tough fight. And it's one of those where he's expected to win, so he doesn't have a lot to gain, but he's got a whole lot to lose in a very tough fight. But yeah, I think the amount of time that he was out doesn't give him a lot of bargaining power. So I think he's kind of put himself in that situation because, even pre-pandemic, he had been out, for over a year. So, it had just been so long since Leon had a fight. But it does beg to the question that, when a guy, like how easy it is for some guys to just pick and choose the fights that they get. And like, at what point is it appropriate for UFC to be like, no, you're going to fight this person, period.
Yeah.
So, Russ, I'll get your thoughts on that first. And then Ben, you can
I think you just have to get to a certain level of like marketability. Like it's a combination of skills and marketability. You can't just have the skills. Like you have to be a big draw to be able to do that. And I just don't think he's even close to that level. Like,
right.
I mean, he hasn't beaten enough top dudes and he's not nearly active enough. I've almost forgotten like his fighting style. It's been so long since we've seen him. I mean, just get in there and string some wins together. I don't care who it's against at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The thing is, though, I like him. There's something respectable and honorable about not faking your character, just being who you are, going in there, handling business, and not like trying to be marketable in any way. You know what I mean? That's Leon Edwards. He knows he's not marketable and he's not trying anything new. He's just going about his business like a man, and he's going to go in there and maybe get the win. And hopefully people start to recognize. The hardcores know that he's top 3-4 fighters in the world. Hopefully the casuals know after the Muhammad fight.
I like a gimmick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How do you feel about Colby?
Not a fan.
Yeah.
There you go.
I love me a good gimmick, but I'm also a massive pro wrestling fan. Like I'll get my gimmicks from pro wrestling. So
yeah.
So I guess, I'll kind of ask you guys this question to kind of further this discussion. So let's say Leon Edwards goes out there and handles his business in this fight, but he's still in the same position because the two guys ahead of him are Masvidal and Colby. And if they both, again, refuse to fight Leon Edwards, where does that leave Leon? Does Leon jump past both of them to a title shot? Or is Leon just stuck in the wings and he just gets to fight the 4 and 5 guys for the rest of his career because the guys ahead of him just have a stranglehold on the top of the division and can obviously draw a lot more money?
I think if he wins that fight, he's got to get Colby at that point. Like, I don't understand why he's not getting Colby already, but if he wins, he's got to get that fight. Why is that? The
UFC basically, like Dana White came out and said that was the fight to make, and Colby just flat out refused. He said, this guy is irrelevant. Like, he's like, this isn't a charity. Like, I'm not here to fight these bums.
I'm saying, what is like his plan then? Because like Colby doesn't have a fight, and does he just want to?
No, I believe they're working on something with Colby, George, and Usman. There's something going on there. There's definitely something going on there, but I think Leon gets screwed.
Right.
I think the UFC is trying to screw Leon. It's going to be very hard to get that title shot if you're Leon.
I don't know that they're intentionally trying to screw Leon, but I agree with Ben that they're working on something, and it seems like it's very much along the lines of, two of them are going to coach the next season's Ultimate Fighter, but one of them isn't going to have a fight, so you got to go with one or the other. And I can't imagine that it's going to end up being Usman isn't going to be the odd man out. It's going to be George or it's going to be Colby. And then they're going to have, if Leon Edwards beats Muhammad, it's going to be very hard to see a scenario where the other one doesn't have to fight Leon Edwards at that point.
Yeah.
But they're at a point where like they've made it sound like they're like, well, I'm not going to. Like, if Leon Edwards isn't the fight for me.
Let's just say it's going to be very hard for Leon to get the title shot. Very hard. UFC is going to work very hard to make that not happen.
Well, I think if he beats Muhammad, and then if he gets either Colby or Masvidal and he beats them, I think he's 2 fights away from a title fight. Because if he wins those 2 fights,
title
fight.
True, but is he going to get Colby or George if he wins? He could get I mean, you could put him up against Wonder Boy. You could put him up against like Chimaev could be somewhere in there by then.
That's true.
You know?
I said it'll be curious to see what happens, and that's why I was just curious to get your guys' input, because like I said, like I just thought it was very odd that Leon's a number 3 ranked guy in the world, and that fighters can just be like, I'm not fighting him, he's not relevant, and then they were just like, okay, I guess you don't have to fight him, with no accountability whatsoever. It just seems crazy. It really can logjam a guy and make it really tough.
That's the narrative, but
they're doing that crap with Chandler too.
Who knows what's really going on?
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be maybe something behind the scenes, because like the UFC is not like let fighters control their destiny ever. So,
right.
With maybe the exception of Conor, but like he's
right.
A very special circumstance.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is like, it seems like more and more it's starting to lean that way to a degree. Like it certainly isn't like out of control. Like we're not at like NBA levels where players can just pick what team they want to play on, but like as it becomes, to Ben's point, maybe a little bit less about wins and losses and a little bit more about like how many pay-per-view buys you generate, will that tend to start to be the trend and guys get to pick and choose their fights a little bit more. And I think, like obviously I think the Diaz brothers are a great example. Like they can kind of come and go as they please, kind of pick and choose who they're going to fight.
For sure.
And they're going to generate that level of interest that like they almost get the ability to do that, but like if Nate Diaz said he wants to fight Masvidal in a rematch and just jumps right past Leon Edwards, if I was Leon Edwards, I'd stab Nate Diaz in a parking lot somewhere. Like I'd be furious.
Yeah. Well, the UFC's always played favorites. You know what I mean? And it'd be nice if they didn't. But
well, again, the UFC, and I'm with you. Like to me, like I feel like it's like as just like the purest of the sport, you want to see just like a pure rankings thing. But at the end of the day, the UFC is a business.
Yeah,
and the UFC's got to make the most money they possibly can make.
They love that money.
Yeah, and sometimes that doesn't always entail making the fight that is fair. And I thought it was funny because before he passed on to the other side at the hands of Derek Lewis, that's what Curtis Blaydes was saying, because people asked him, they're like, well, do you think John Jones getting the next title shot is fair? And he's like, look, it's not always about what's fair. He's like, if John comes to heavyweight, John's getting the title shot. It is what it is. I'm not gonna be mad about it. What are you gonna do? He's John Jones.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
True.
That's what I'm gonna do. So, and such is life. So, but it's certainly interesting. I agree. I think there's a balance between like the rankings in the fight you earn as compared to the fights that maybe will draw the most fan attention.
Yeah.
And it's a fine line to walk. I think, on either side, you're going to upset some fans because because a guy earns a fight and you book a boring fight when there's like a fight that everyone wants to see just waiting and you don't book that fight, then people be like, oh, the UFC is a bunch of idiots for not booking that fight. It's a fight everyone wants to see, but old boring Joe over there just holds guys down and he earned a shot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is a fine line, isn't it? I mean, there's the UFC gets it right most of the time, but then there's some guys that they just don't want to get those big fights. You can tell it's every now and then. And Leon I think is one of those guys.
Yeah. Somehow it seems like they've got to book Leon against Jorge. That seems like the move to make because they still got that beef from that backstage fight so long ago.
Yeah, that storyline's already written for him. That should be the fight for sure.
Yeah, that's how, like, if it were me, I would somehow work that into the mix, especially because Masvidal seems to pretty much be on vacation at this point. Like, he's got nothing going on. So,
yeah,
make it happen.
I agree.
But I digress. We could talk about what should happen all the time. Let's talk about this next heavyweight main event coming up. We've got Rozenstruik against Cyril Gane, who's undefeated and killing dude. So I'll throw it over to you guys to get your thoughts on what you think is going to happen and what you expect to see from this fight. So Russ, take it away.
Another big heavyweight main event we got. It's an awesome fight. 11-1 Rozenstruik against 7-0 Gane. Super good fight. Gane gets the win. He'll be up in the top 5, in the rankings. I'm pulling for him. I like to see him get another win and move up there. He's just got awesome fighting style. He's mixes it up with submissions and striking. Does it all. He's a minus 275 favorite, which I think is like a pretty large favorite against a dude that's 11-1 and only lost to Ngannou, who just blitzed him. You know what I mean? Like Rozenstruik is no pushover. He's at plus 215. If you're betting it, I think you would have to take Rozenstruik, but I'm not messing with it. The heavyweight fights are too insane for me. But yeah, I just think it's a tough fight. You know, one loss between the two. They both got wins over JDS. It's a good fight. At
this point, I think Ben has a win over JDS though. So
yeah, I mean Rozenstruik has the better wins just because he's been around longer, but Gane looks really good. I mean, you don't see too many heavyweights that move like he does. So I'm looking forward to it. See what we got.
Yeah, I agree with you, Russ. Gane looks great, but Rozenstruik has the experience. He has more experience and he's got the better resume. But you could say that Rozenstruik lost that fight to Overeem when actually he didn't lose the fight, but he lost like four rounds in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. But yeah, Gane's looked real good. He's very technical, very calculated. And as far as we can tell, pretty well-rounded. He's got multiple submission wins. He's got knockout KO wins. I'm going to go with Gane in that fight. But it's a toss-up in my opinion. Phil?
I think the odds are probably swayed because Gane's had a lot of real impressive quick knockouts, and I think people remember the Rozenstruik Francis fight, and I think a lot of people see it going that way.
Yeah.
I think it's unfair to question someone's chin if they've been lost one fight in their career and it was by knockout against Francis Ngannou. It's probably unfair. But I could see I can see the logic that Gane will get it done in similar fashion. He's just a great athlete. He's going to move forward. He's probably quicker than Rozenstruik. And at some point he's going to get his hands on him and it could be a very similar result. So like, I agree. It's a tough one to call because anything could happen, but I think Gane will get it done as well. So
should be a good one.
Yeah. But with that being said, Russ, why don't you tell the people how to make some money this upcoming weekend?
All right, let's get some best bets. We got winners this week. We're winning this week for sure. All right, last week went 1-2. We got the win with Dawkins. That was a very easy win against Olynyk. We lost on Aspinall because I took him by KO, and even though it looked like he was on that path to victory, he decided to hop on and take the submission victory. And then Charles Rosa just got dominated by Derek Minner. So that
poor
was a
performance
loss.
by Rosa.
Man, Minner looked good, like very good on the ground. So I don't know what's up with that, but 1-2. So this week I'm taking Matzo versus Alexis Davis. She's 23 years old, 9-1. Just seems very good. Seems very strong. Alexis Davis is 36 years old, coming off a 3-fight losing streak and a pregnancy. So like, I don't see how she's going to come out and compete at like the level that Matzo is going to bring. So I got that one. Matzo is a big favorite, minus 230. So you're going to have to lay some money on that, but I like her. I got a parlay for you. Angela Hill and Cyril Gane. You parlay them together, minus 125. I think Angela Hill is pretty much a surefire win. And then Cyril Gane, we just want some action on the main event. And then for my third one, I got Bueno Silva versus Montana De La Rosa. Bueno Silva has a much better record. I've seen her fight a few times. She's looked pretty strong. Montana De La Rosa is never very impressive. So we're going with that one. It'll be no bueno for De La Rosa.
Oh, I like that.
I see what you did there.
We're having a big week here. We're hitting the parlay and hitting the other two. We're going to go 3-0, make some cash.
I hope you're right. Mazzo usually puts on exciting fights too. I remember when she was in LFA watching, she had 2 fights in a row, one with head kick knockouts because she's got like an incredible length for that. So yeah, Alexis Davis is probably going to be on the end of some jabs and some head kicks. So
yeah, Davis is a veteran, but she's just been around forever. You know, she's fought Ronda Rousey. Like she's been around a long time. So
yeah,
agreed.
She's probably going to get beat up. Here's to hoping.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, with that being said, I think that wraps everything up, boys. Anything else you guys wanted to add before we close up shop for the day?
No, we could mention the boxing knockout because that Oscar Valdez KO of Burchelt was freaking amazing.
That was
Like,
crazy.
That was one of the coolest sounding knockouts I've ever heard in boxing or MMA. Like, it just was so awesome sounding.
He just landed so clean, just planted and just landed.
Yeah. And then the way he went down looked like a video game knockout, how he just like crumpled over.
Ragdoll.
Yeah. I mean, like, if knockouts make you a little bit like queasy, man, Saturday night was one for the ages. Like, you went straight from Blaydes getting annihilated to that KO, where both of them, like, it looked very bad. Like, that Burchelt one looked really bad. Like, he did not get up for a long time. And then when he was stretchered out, he still looked like dead in the eyes.
I read later though that the scans came back good and he was cleared that night, so that's great. And
That's amazing.
And then also Blaydes is in real good spirits. I seen a video. He's like, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and he's like, look, I was the hammer. And then his fiance is like, you were the nail. He's like, oh yeah, I was the nail. Like,
you good, babe?
I'm okay. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. I was the hammer. It is what it is.
Wait, I think you were the nail, babe.
Yeah. Oh, I got concussed. What I say?
it was funny.
Yeah, that's all you can do. You know, you gotta respect when you guys take it in stride. Like, I'm sure it's real disappointing because I'm sure he was pretty convinced he was going to get that win. And he's got to know it's a major setback for him because he was probably like winning that fight away from a title shot. And now he's, back of the line. So, it's going to be a lot for him to dust off and come back. So,
what a shame.
Hit him with those crotch chops.
Yeah, you sound heartbroken. So, but with that being said, we'll let you guys get on out of here. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me as always. Everyone enjoy the fights this weekend. The heavyweight madness continues all the way up to the title fight coming up soon. So
yes.
So
hey, thanks for watching, guys.
We'll be back next week to recap the event, and we'll talk to you guys then. So we'll see you guys.
Like, subscribe, and watch. Tell all your friends and all that stuff because we need some views and all that bull crap. Come on now.
Stuff.
Yeah,
all of the things. Do all of the things.
Please. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys.